I have always found that Husqvarna Viking has some of the simplest, easiest buttonholes, and their foot makes it so easy. Plus, the being able to measure the button that you are going to put the buttonhole on for is also as easy as pie. There are videos in this machine to even show you how it's done, but I'm going to take you through the steps needed to master buttonholes, eyelets, and sewing buttons on all at once. Hi, I'm Sarah from sewingmastery.com, and we are doing all the free video tutorials on the Husqvarna Viking Designer Epic 3. Now, you will also notice in the background is one of our online courses, and that quilt, our Husqvarna Viking Stitching Cosmos, has a block for so many different techniques, including, yes, we put buttonholes on that quilt and put ribbon through them. And why not? You can use variegated thread and spice up buttonholes. But you will find buttonholes are not just for clothing. You'll find them in many home decor items or just some basic craft items that you want to do. So first go ahead and find your buttonhole foot, and you'll notice it has a cord on it. You also have a manual version of this foot, so you can make longer buttonholes than you would like. But we're just going to go ahead and go over to A3 to find all your buttonholes. So there are different kinds, and if you're wondering what all of these are meant for, touch the question mark. Once it's pulsating, touch a buttonhole and it will define what it is and give you a reference of which fabrics it is best to be stitched on. X out of that. And the other way that you can use the sewing advisor, start by going up to the center Husqvarna Viking logo, touch sewing. Yes, I'm going to have it clear my own ongoing work. It always does that. But you can tell the machine, for example, if you are going to do some stretch fabric and that you're going to do a buttonhole, it's going to do two things. Number one, it's going to come up with the step-by-step. So there's 4 steps in here of what to do and how to prepare and stitch out the buttonhole. But it also is going to have a video. So anytime you see that little triangle, the play button, that video will play just by touching it, and it will walk you through kind of what I'm showing you, but with a little bit more details, such as for measuring. So those are always helpful to go back in and watch. But right up here on this second tab where it says content, it picks up the buttonhole that would be ideal for knit fabrics. So I'm going to go ahead and X out, and it is already recommended a buttonhole with a corded feature. So those will be things that you can do for stretch fabric. So it'll always tell you like which buttonhole is best for different fabrics, and I am going to switch back to just a woven fabric just so I can have what you'll probably see as a regular option here. So you'll see the C foot with the red wheel. So go ahead and attach that foot to the machine. Do remember, this is key, that there is not a place for the IDT to fit behind the foot. So make sure you're disengaging that IDT. Slide the foot in place and then reach back behind the machine and plug this in. You notice the screen changed just a little bit once I plugged it in. We now see a whole new option called slit length, and this is measured by how big your button is. So I'm going to show you how that's done. We'll program it in and then let the machine automatically stitch the buttonhole. Start by holding your button near the metric millimeters location here, and you see a dotted circle. So when you set your button on the measuring tool, I see that I'm approximately 21 millimeters, and so I can come right over to the screen right where it says 16, and let's increase that up to a longer length. You can even see this buttonhole picture is coming to be, there's 21, a little longer. And if you want, you can hold the button right up to that stitch, and it is perfectly opened so there's room on each end for the bar tack, and it is going to stitch out exactly how you see it. Now, here is another trick just to note. Do you realize that all your stitches on this machine, when they start, there's always a place, like a location, like where the stitch is starting? So for example, on a buttonhole though, it is starting down here, and that arrow is showing that it's going to stitch north first. So for the Stitching Cosmos buttonholes, all I did was I put a little mark next to the starting point and then aligned my buttonhole to be perpendicular to the curve and stitched each of them to the exact length every single time. The last thing you need to do is take your finger and twist the red wheel until the white little bumps on the red wheel are lined up with the white mark of the foot. If you don't do that, a little message is going to pop up and indicate that you haven't done that, and you'll just give it a little twirl and it will reset and start to stitch the buttonhole correctly. Let's just pretend that our starting point is right here. Go ahead and move that needle right above your marked dot. Step on the foot control and let the machine, you'll notice it will stitch back first, and then it will switch over to satin stitch that first leg, and then it will stitch back to where it was, do the bar tack at the top, stitch all the way down, keep your foot on the foot control, or if you've used the start stop button, that is super easy as well. It will do the bar tack at the end, lock it, and perfect. Touch the scissor button to cut, and it will perfectly give you that same buttonhole every single time. I would love for you to take the time and stitch out all the buttonhole styles that you have on the screen, and so you can get an idea of how this works. As you change buttonhole styles, you will need to put in the length that you want each time, because it will clear the length from the previous buttonhole, and you will then have control of the new length on the new buttonhole as you pick different ones. For fun, we are going to do one of the eyelets. Notice that as you pick an eyelet, it'll show foot B is our foot of choice. 19 is like a teardrop, super fun. 20 is a little bit more elongated, but you actually do have control of like how wide or how long an eyelet will be. So you can come in here and play as you wish. If you want it back to normal, just touch that stitch again. So I'm going to stitch out an eyelet, and then I'm going to come over and pick stitch number 17, which will lower the feed dogs and allow us to sew the button on, and you can see all the steps needed. And before you know it, your projects are going to be lickety-split, done and done. Eyelets could even be used to kind of tack quilts. Like if you've ever tied a quilt, why not use a decorative stitch or an eyelet to finish it off? When we select stitch number 17, you're going to hear something in the machine click. That is the feed dogs going down. Now notice that you do see your multi-purpose tool and a button, but no foot. So I am going to remove the foot, and we show you how this works with the ankle of the machine holding the button in place. If you were looking to add a little bit of shank of thread between the button and the stitches, when you're sewing it onto something that is actually going to be buttoned, placing the multi-purpose tool under the button eliminates you having to stick like a toothpick or a pin for the needle to stitch over. So that spacer is exactly what you're looking for. For today, I'm going to just go ahead and set this straight onto the fabric like if it was meant to be a decorative piece added to a project. So nothing would button onto it, so I don't need any spacing of extra thread to allow it to button to something. You do notice that your needle is sitting over on the left side, so hand turn the needle into the left hole. At this point, touch and lower the foot down on the button. Now, right now, I'm going to hand turn the needle and test that swing to the right, and if that needle goes into the hole, I'm ready to stitch. On screen, I see that it says repeats 8 times. If you want it to go back and forth more than 8 times, you can actually change it right here to be more or less, but let's just leave it at 8. Sometimes I've seen people sew 8 stitches and then they'll just sew 8 more stitches. So if you really want it reinforced extra, you can just sew the sequence twice. Here we go. And it stops for you automatically. Yes, you can use the scissor button to cut your thread, and I purposely picked a 4-hole button. So people always ask, well, how do you get the second holes? Well, you just line it up and do it again. Needle down into one of the holes, lower the presser foot, take 1 stitch, let it swing to the right. If it makes it, go ahead and sew, and you're done. Scissor button to cut it, and we have successfully stitched a button to our fabric. I hope you'll take some time to explore your buttonholes, your eyelets, and sewing on buttons. We do this in our Husqvarna Viking Stitching Cosmos online course. We'll put links below for you to check out free videos so you can see if that course might be right for you. I hope you'll check out all of our videos we are creating that are free tutorials on the Husqvarna Viking Designer Epic 3. You'll find a link to all of them right here at the end of this video. Click there and start to play.